Hi, thanks for stopping by. Today we're going to be looking at my favorites of 2022, which consists of music, movies, film cameras, and film stocks. Pretty much everything else that every alternative hipster grandpa likes, I suppose. Now that we've established who we are, you guys can probably guess what my top picks for these categories are going to be already. So get comfy because you're about to hear me talk for a long time. This coffee's a day old. My favorite camera of the year. So I wanted to give this one to the Olympus OMG because it's been my first film camera and it's the thing that's launched me into film photography. I have a lot of sentimental value with that camera, but I found a new love for a new format that I've really gotten into this year. Specifically, it's been in medium format, and I have found that love with the one and only Mamiya RB67. So why this camera specifically? Well, I've actually found that a lot of the gripes that people have with this camera have turned into the things that I've come to really love about it. With this system specifically, you only get 10 shots per roll, but I'm telling you right now, every time a photo turns out the way you want it to, the detail in the image is just, it hits harder than methamphetamine. Not that I've ever done that, but you get the point. A lot of people don't like the waist level viewfinder on this one, but it's actually allowed me to frame up my subjects better, and also it just makes me feel like I'm peering into a whole new world with it. And a lot of people don't like that you have to advance both the film and the mirror on this camera, but to me that actually is another thing that I've come to love about it, because that is kind of leading into what I've realized a lot about myself and how I handle photography this year. What I've taken away from this year the most is that when it comes to a photo project or just doing a photo shoot in general, I found that patience and intention is the thing that what I look for in my photos, and that gives me the most value back when it comes to the craft. And if getting the best image means that I have to put the camera on a tripod, I'll do that. If I have to sacrifice or add aperture and shutter speed, then I'll do that too. And I haven't even talked about my favorite feature on this camera, which is quite literally the RB on the RB67, which stands for rotating back. The rotating back meaning that if you want to go from landscape to portrait, then you just need to turn this back right here clockwise, and you're in portrait mode immediately. If I want to go from landscape to portraiture or portraiture to landscape, it's so easy for me to do that. And again, it's the whole case with framing up my subjects and making the whole photo look like I really put my thought into it and that the whole thing meant something to me, the whole experience in general. One of my main goals with photography as a whole is that I want to share my perspective with people and allow others to see the world as I see it. And honestly, I can't really get any closer than I already have than with the Mamiya RB67, and that's why it's my camera of the year. So when it comes to film stocks this year, I feel like that film photographers have been split into two separate camps. One camp where people are still shooting Portra 400 like every single time they shoot a film camera, and the other camp of people that have found a rejuvenating love for Kodak Gold 200. And while Portra 400 is God tier and Kodak Gold 200 is pretty much also God tier, I found myself to be in a different camp this year, a different camp that looks like Kodak Color Plus 200. This is a film stock that I've seen a lot of film photographers on YouTube shoot with, and I saw it on eBay and I figured I would pick up a couple rolls to see if I would like it any. And I remember getting my first negatives and scans back of this roll, and I was just completely blown away by the great amount of detail and the rich colors that it produces. I don't really know how to explain it to you guys. There's just like a really enriching warm tone and a creamy softness to this film stock that I don't really get with any other one out there. Not to mention that this stock is also incredibly tangible. If I want to, I can use this stock for professional work just as much as I can for interpersonal work. So I can use this for a portrait session just as much as I could if I wanted to put a roll of this into my 35mm camera and shoot maybe like a family gathering or a birthday party or something like that. It's always going to give me a color result that I'm going to be happy with. And if I can be incredibly frank with you guys right now, it's because of this stock that I've realized that I don't really have a reason to go back to Portra 400 anymore. Portra 400 just isn't the most cost-effective these days, and with Color Plus 200, it totally is. And if I want to go up to ISO 400 for a special occasion, then you can easily push this one to one stop, and it's going to give you just as good results. Yeah, this stock rules, and it is my favorite one of this year. I also want to give an honorable mention to my favorite black and white film that I've shot this year, which was another one that it came out of nowhere for me, and that is TMX 400. In short, the detail, the contrast, and the shadow fall off on this one is just not really a feeling that I can get with any other black and white stock. Not to say that it's better than Ilford HP5, but it definitely gives it a run for its money. If you haven't shot with TMX yet, I highly recommend that you do. It's no accident thinking that YouTube is my biggest addiction, which if you're watching this video, then it's probably yours too. After giving it a lot of thought, I think that my favorite YouTube channel this year has to be Theo Crawford's channel.
I'll be taking you with me with the GoPro, just like with the digital photography videos, just that in this case I have pretty much no idea what I'm doing. Let's do it.
Theo Crawford is a photographer and filmmaker in Austria, and the videos that he makes is the ultimate comfort and therapy session to me. The way that he shoots everything, the way that he edits everything, the music that he uses, and the way that he chooses to tell the story of each video to me is just perfect in every way. I use YouTube to decompress from the day, and he fills that need for me incredibly well. On top of being a digital and film photographer, the reason why Theo has become basically a role model to me is the fact that he sees that photography is best suited in a community aspect.
On a deeper level. For this reason, I wrote to Samantha asking her if she'd be open to answer a few questions in an interview, and she responded. I was so happy that she seemed quite delighted to share some answers, because this is the first time for me actually having direct contact to the artist whose work I'm presenting in a video.
He wants to know from his audience about how he can make his videos better, and he takes constructive criticism when he needs to, and he makes the whole YouTube experience feel like a dialogue, and it's just a really great way to run things. Theo, if you're watching this, then I have one request. You need to do an Audible book, because your voice is just smooth as butter. And that's all I'm going to say about that. But for real, Theo, if you are watching this, then I can't help but extend my gratitude towards you and what you've done for the photography community this year. Keep making the content that you're making, and I'm going to keep watching. So I'm not just into photography, I have a lot of other interests, believe it or not. Along with photography, music is another really big interest of mine. It's a major hobby. It's been one of my biggest hobbies for as long as I've known it to be. And as far as music goes, this year has been incredible pertaining to that. Men I Trust came out with a really good album this year. Natalia Lafourcade and Black Midi also came out with some incredible albums that I can't recommend enough to you guys. Kendrick Lamar, and also one of my favorite YouTube music artists, Skin Shape. He came out with another album this year, and I've been really enjoying the listening experience from those two as well. And Weezer and King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, for some reason, came out with like 50 million albums this year. I'm not really sure what the inspiration for that was, but they did, and those have also been interesting listening experiences. However, there is an album this year that has been my placeholder ever since I listened to it for the first time in February, and that has to be Black Country New Roads' Ants From Up There. So this is actually their sophomore album. Their first album that came out last year was titled For the First Time, and that album also, in my opinion, is mind-blowing in every way. I love the instrumentation on that, and the jazz and experimental rock and post-punk influences on that album. I think that they're really well executed, and I think as far as finding a voice for themselves, Black Country New Road did a really good job concerning that. And I remember listening to the music and seeing their live performances and thinking that we were witnessing the start of one of the most iconic bands of the 2020s. And then they came out with this album, and I can't help but be confident in what I thought at the time. The crazy thing about this record is that it kind of shies away from being like really hardcore and like punky, and instead it sounds like we're listening to an Arcade Fire album with this whole record, but not in the way that they sound like a rip-off band. Rather, it kind of seems like they are still Black Country New Road, but they figured out an entirely new voice, and somehow they sound even better this time around with these songs. Some of my favorites from this album being Concord, Good Will Hunting, the place where he inserted the blade, and the gargantuan closer to this album, Basketball Shoes. Something that I love about this album is that the further you get into it, the longer the songs get. And I think what they were trying to do with that is really put the listener in the shoes of the person who is singing on this album. And something that I can really commend this album with that I could also say about the previous album that they did is that it sounds like there are over 20 musicians playing on this album, but there's only 7. And all of the musicians on this album just complement each other so well. Charlie's drumming, May's keyboards, George's violin playing, Luke's guitar playing, Lewis's saxophone, Tyler's bass, and Isaac Wood's vocals on this thing. They're all just married so well, they're engineered perfectly, and they're mixed to perfection. But it's not just the album itself, but the history and story behind the album is what really gets to me too. The lead singer of this band, Isaac Wood, a few days after the album was released in February, unfortunately decided to leave the band because Isaac just couldn't handle the attention that the band was getting, and his mental health was at a all-time low because of it. And it just makes this album so much more memorable to me, and it makes it a landmark in music because we're probably not going to get that many live performances with the incredible songs that we've been given on this album with. And to go off that into the future, the band hasn't slowed down because Isaac has left. In fact, they're writing new material, they're performing live, they're introducing a whole new lineup and sound that what Black Country New Road is going to be in the future and what they intend to stick to.
Oh my god, the albums are here.
And the cassette.
Yeah.
And for reasons like that, I can't help but have just a huge amount of respect for the band and what they want to accomplish. Also, I have got to admit, the photos in this lyric book have made me realize that this is like the most photogenic band that I have ever seen in my whole life. Black Country New Road, if you are watching this video right now and you see how much of a dedicated fan I am, I would love to shoot an album cover for you guys. Oh my god, if that happened, I would die. As far as movies go this year, I've had some pretty genuine favorites. I love the new Batman movie, the new Pixar movies Lightyear and Turning Red were pretty good. And then also, one movie that surprised me was Top Gun Maverick. I haven't even seen the first Top Gun movie, and I really enjoyed that one with the friends that I saw it with. And also, the one movie that I wanted to be my favorite of this year, that is unfortunately the runner-up, was Nope. Definitely go see that if you haven't. Jordan Peele's, I don't know if it's his best movie, but it's getting there for me. But it is my opinion and many other people's opinion that the best movie of this year is hands down Everything Everywhere All at Once. I'm going to try and keep this one really brief because there's not really a way that I can explain why I love this movie to you guys without spoiling so many things about it. But also, it's kind of hard to explain it otherwise because this is literally a movie that's trying to be everything, everywhere, all at once. It's trying to be every genre. It's trying to be every emotion. It's trying to be every character in the whole world. It's trying to do all of these things in one movie, and to be honest, it does a pretty good job of it. It goes without saying, but the fight choreography in this movie is incredible. The cinematography and the fact that all of the visual effects done in this movie were by only like 4 visual effects artists is still something that I can't wrap my head around. This was so much work for them. And not to mention the script of this movie, the directing of this movie, and most importantly to me with this film, the acting is just on point. I love Michelle, I love Stephanie, I love James Hahn in this movie, but the person who carried it for me was, of course, Ke-Huy Kwan's character, Waymond. Again, it's really hard to talk about why I love this movie so much. I've seen it 3 times this year. But what I will say about it is that the movie kind of relies on the fact that it's an A24 movie to be so good. And I know that sounds a little bit confusing right now, but trust me, you'll understand what I'm saying when you watch the movie. A24 is usually known for being just like outrageous and off the wall with their storytelling and trying to break the 3-act system, basically. And Everything Everywhere All at Once actually benefits because it follows the A24 formula, but it also follows kind of just what Western movies are known to be. It just kind of makes a movie that stands on its own and has never really been done before. This movie is over the top, emotional. You'll cry and laugh during it. You need to go see this movie if you haven't already. It's my favorite film of the year. The discussion revolving around what my favorite TV show this year yields the easiest answer, but it really pains me to say it because there's been so much good TV this year. House of the Dragon started. Love that show so far. Severance is a new show that also started. I recommend that one. The new season of Stranger Things ruled. The new season of Euphoria was kind of a mess, but good, I suppose. Ozark ended in a way that I feel like me and my family are like the only people who really liked the ending for some reason. A lot of people didn't. I don't know why. I thought it ended pretty well, actually. Ozark's another good show if you haven't seen that one already. But another show that sadly ended this year is a show that I've been following ever since I was a senior in high school. I was 17 when it came out. I'm 24 now. I'm just putting that into perspective for you guys. The show that I am talking about is the prequel to what I consider to be the greatest show of all time, Breaking Bad. I am, of course, talking about Better Call Saul. This is another case, kind of like with Everything Everywhere All at Once, where I can't really explain to you why this thing is so good, because if I were to do that, I would be spoiling things that would just ruin the experience for you people that haven't seen the show yet. But if I had to find the words to tell you why, I really do think that the ending of this show is the capstone to the golden era of television. The simple fact that the creators of Breaking Bad can turn a prequel show into its own thing, give it its own voice, its own look, its own narrative, and somehow becoming even better than the original show that they started with is a huge feature to be known for. The characters in this show are so three-dimensional and they're so complicated in the best way possible. the editing is in its own way kind of rewriting how television is to be formed, and the cinematography in this show is the one thing that I don't think anyone is ever going to understand how snubbed it is, because the cinematography in the show is probably the best I've ever seen in any show I've ever watched. It's on another level. The way they frame things, the way they light things, the way that they use movement to display an emotion that we're supposed to be feeling as the audience, to be put in the same shoes and clothes as the characters that we're seeing on screen right now. It's so effective that it makes you feel a little uncomfortable sometimes because of how they can just make you feel for these people and the hardships and the trials and tribulations that they put themselves through. Patrick Fabian as Howard, Rhea Seehorn as Kim Wexler, Michael McKean as Chuck, Michael Mando as Nacho, and Bob Odenkirk as Saul Goodman. These are characters that I'm going to live the rest of my life thinking about because of how iconic they are. The way that Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould and the rest of their crew started and ended the show, to me, has just made me so happy that I have gone into the craft of filmmaking. And it makes me even more confident that the TV shows have learned from what precedent they have set for television as a whole. And I cannot wait to see what the future holds for filmmaking and narrative storytelling. It makes me sound like a nerd, and I don't mind being one. If you've made it this far into the video, then I just want to thank you again for stopping by and checking out what this channel is all about. The photo projects that I've done, the people that I've met, the connections that I've made, I'm more than confident I'm going to look back on this year and wholeheartedly not regret anything that I did. But I want to open up the conversation to you guys too. Did you find a new favorite film stock? Did you find a new favorite film camera? What was your favorite movie, or what was your favorite album? I really would love to generate conversation out of the way, so leave it down in the comments if you want to tell your story. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, please take care of yourself. Be good.